questions for you.
Yeah.
Okay, Brent, we're a couple of weeks out from field days, and being the marketer I am, I'm looking to do a bit of a series around heartbeat and heritage. And when it comes to heartbeat, I can't think of any two better people to start the conversation with than both yourselves. So just for myself, my own understanding, as well as some of our team members, as well as maybe some of our customers if they're interested, like where does the rural heritage begin, and where does the farming stories start for both you two?
Well, the rural heritage never stops, but where it begins is when we're born, I guess. I was born Taupori on a farm. And you were?
Yeah, I'm from Batara and third generation dairy farming family.
Yep, so dairy farming families entrenched. Dad was broken a few farms in Waitaha and came from sort of the Motomaho swamp way back out to Taupori. And
unfortunately for both of us, we were both born in July and August, so that meant, birthdays were pretty rubbish because the parents were always calving.
Yeah, I never had a good birthday.
No.
Yeah, cows are calving. And so I guess, we grew up in that space of you were just always going to be farming.
Just expected, or that's all you knew. That was in your blood. That's what you thought you were going to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So growing up on a farm, you obviously were born into it. There was probably a bit of an obligation from mum and dad to get you working on the farm. What kept you in the farming space when opportunities or friends could have taken you elsewhere?
For me, it was just never going to be not. I was always fully immersed in whether it be farm and the fun around the farm and hunting, shooting, bikes, tractors, engines, animals. It was sort of just always what it was. I guess that all just morphed into the greatest playground in the world when you're growing up in New Zealand. And then when you get into sort of those teenage years, you obviously burn the candle at both ends. Then because you chuck sport in there, and then obviously ladies. That's when I run into Juanita, because I can vividly remember talking to Juanita thinking, this is perfect. I've found this, intelligent person that wants to go hard but also loves the farm, and that's pretty unique, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can say for myself, I was always mad on the stock and always mad on the animals. I'd much rather be down the farm helping Dad than I was being at home with Mum. And so I always wanted to be a dairy farmer, and that was what I was passionate about. And it wasn't until I hit sort of 18 or 17, 18, and I thought, oh gosh, I better do some education as well. So I did an agribusiness degree so I could, be in that world. And that just worked perfectly, meeting up with Brent and finding someone else that was passionate about dairy cows and, finding common ground, and we're getting into it together.
And I guess we sort of, the challenge with all farm, probably all industry, is working out how you go from being born or living in some sort of industry to then where do you become in that industry, or how do you play your part in it. And so for us to, the farming side, that's not an easy route. So we were basically both pretty much booted out to go and fend for yourself and obviously get plenty of advice from family, but go and have a crack, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then I guess we started, I started just as back then it was called a worker. It's probably not politically correct now, but you were a worker, and then you were a manager, and then I got contract milking, then lower order share milking, and then share milking, and then several share milking jobs together, and then ended up chasing farm. But in the meantime, you were working, feeding calves in the morning.
Feeding calves before I went to work, so I was a rural manager for the National Bank for years, alongside with our dairying operation, and I used to feed the calves because we didn't, back then it was pretty tough going, and so only you were running the farm by yourself, and so I'd feed the calves before I went to work and do a full day's work and come back and help at night time. So it was those pretty tough years, but
I think the unique thing around what we do is that you don't, like the whole side of who we are, we've always tried to be better at it and tried to learn how we can work together as a team and then collectively grow teams. And I guess that's what's unique about Stoney Creek, is a great opportunity for us to build products that we know are going to make a bit of a difference, and also grow a team that ends up creating a bit more of a voice socially and environmentally and all these other things that we've been able to do, which is fantastic. For us to be able to look at Stoney Creek, the brand, and go, how does it fit within the rural space? It's just a prerequisite for us, because that's just our space. So we don't think of it as any other category than just our life. So, rural and hunting, they just go hand in hand. And so for us, if something's right or wrong, and whether something's going to work or not. And what's cool about our team is they're all from the same blood. So whether it be, different parts of New Zealand, but the majority of our team are all from farms or outdoors or whatever it might be. So that makes it pretty cool, eh?
Pretty.
Yeah.
In those early days, you obviously would have been put in some pretty testing, challenging situations, and I know from a Stoney Creek point of view, we often talk about things like the challenges that farmers have to put up with weather and animals and that. Can any vivid stories you remember that you've been in the trenches together on or experienced?
God, how long have you got?
Juanita and I have had more arguments on a farm than we have on anything else.
Oh my gosh.
We don't really argue anymore compared to calving or shutting gates or pulling a cow out of the shed, man. Yeah, you're tired, you're ground down, you're there's not much left,
And financially, with the seasons, you're subject, you're a victim to the circumstance in respect to the seasons. And remember our first year when we had this great budget, we gave to the bank on a brand new farm, and we were going to do X amount of solids, and it was the El Nino year. So we had El Nino and El Nina 2 years subsequent, and a $3.40 payout.
Yeah.
And we produced, 20% below budget of what we said we're going to do for our brand new farm in our first year, and it was tough, man.
You sort of
We're living on bread and butter, that was for sure.
Yeah, when you talk about trenches on a farm, it's just part of life, I don't feel like it's any different even at Stoney Creek to be some degree. I don't think, there's things that they're grinds as well, but back then when you're starting, you don't have a lot of capacity and much, you don't have much energy, not a lot of finance. You got to make sure that your value for money is perfect. You got to make sure that your fertiliser, your value for fertiliser, you're paying 50% of the cost of your shemulker. You got to know you're getting that return. Pretty much we were in a position where we had a lot of debt, so we were highly geared. And we had to make it work ourselves, so we did pretty much everything we could ourselves. So whether it be, spraying or
baling your own hay,
baling your own hay or whatever it might be.
Everything we did
silage. Obviously wrapping bales wasn't really a thing then, and it started to become that. But yeah, it wasn't really... I remember for me, it was a big deal putting a pre-emergent spray in maize because it was costly and things like that. And then once you started understanding the benefits of that, then obviously it changed. So, but I think the fiscal challenge or the financial challenge in farms, when you're geared and you're trying to grind away yourselves,
it's pretty
tough. Yeah.
So, subject to the weather, climatic conditions, rising fuel costs, rising fertiliser costs, things that you can't control. And I think that's what was...
Rising clothing costs.
Wow, rising clothing.
Like everything, I remember it was a big deal to buy a pair of boots. Big deal to buy a raincoat, rain jacket, leggings.
You certainly didn't upgrade your weather gear every year, that's for sure.
And so for us, we're in this fine line between trying to have to build technically really advanced products and deliver them at a good value, and everyone's got to, for want of a better term, clip the ticket on the way through. So that's where it becomes super challenging. But one thing that people can't take away from us or Stoney Creek is the knowledge behind the brand and understanding what actually is required. Like we've we put so much focus into the smallest detail, where a seam is or where something might be, and we just don't take that for granted. And I don't think we'll ever take that for granted, because that's our DNA. That's who we are as a brand, and that's what makes the Stoney Creek brand what it is today, and essentially it will always be, is that it's purpose built and it's got a good understanding of what products are being made for. Gives you better performance, and it'll maximise experience, albeit not the greatest experience you're having in your lifetime, but it's going to make it a bit better than what it would have been if it wasn't good gear. So that's sort of our mission, and that's sort of one of the things that we are just in search of the whole time.
Coming from grassroots rural New Zealand, and talking through that story you've just told me about, like obviously you've got a lot of empathy and understanding for the rural community, the rural customer, the farmer that's challenged by a whole heap of different things but wanting to grow and do better. What are some of those proud moments in your journey with Stoney Creek where like it's just going to hit the right note with a farmer that was once in the situation you guys were in?
Oh, mine's just, it's funny because you think of proud moments as slightly different than product moments, like producing wicked products and a lightweight. I remember when we produced a really cool lightweight jacket called the Force 18, you could wear that thing, it was wet and it was light on your shoulders, and if you've spent a lot of time out in the rain on rubbish conditions, that everything gets heavy, and this just being dry, So for me, that it was a big deal. We lost a lot of radios and things in troughs, and always wet sleeves, and so when we did the 3/4 cut-off sleeve tops with a radio hole, I mean, that was what I kept saying to you, man, I almost want to go back and try and lose a radio.
Lose a radio on the trough.
But probably for me, the most proudest moments with Stoney Creek is where we are now. Like we're in a position now where we can actually give back into communities, and the things that we're doing now, and we can only do that because of the support we've had. That's where it's really cyclic. Like to be able to support communities and events and things like that in our sort of, ironically, the genre that we grew up in is pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's what I'm most proud of. Yeah.
I think every time we design a new product or and I wear it on the farm or whatever, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. Why couldn't we have had this 30 years ago when we're right in the trenches?
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool feeling knowing that other people are going to get the benefit out of it. And talking of proud moments, I suppose one of the highlights for me, I guess, in the last few years with Stoney Creek product development is, being involved in the wool project and being able to give back to those communities that are really hurting, and those sheep and beef farmers that are struggling and not getting anything for their wool. So being able to pay them a premium and make a functional product that's awesome has been that's been pretty special to be part of.
Hey, 2 weeks out from field days, and I'm sure you guys can imagine or remember back to all the field days you've been, from young little packers right through to when you first exhibited there at Stoney Creek and to where we are now. Like, what are you looking forward to in the getting back to field days down to Mystery Creek again?
Juanita's coffees.
I'm looking forward to just being in touch with our customer, the people that use the product, the people that are passionate about the gear, and seeing the excitement, or to buying something new or restocking on their wardrobe for the winter, and just catching up with people that haven't seen for ages. And it's always a good community event, and love it.
I don't know, I mean, field days is just the way of life. I mean, we're going there since we're before 5, and so it was your day out. The irony is that for the last 40 odd days at field days, I don't think I've seen anywhere other than our tent. But
the inside of the tent.
But for me, it's several things. It's just a real good connect for our whole team to connect with sort of who we were once, where we used to be, and it's really cool because there's a lot of people that they get it after a few days of the same language, same sort of discussions, and it just reminds our team of what's important and what works and what's important to consumers. So that for me is a real big thing. And the other one is just where it's come from. Like, I mean, when we were, anybody who didn't know Stoney Creek and they walk into our field days tent now, well, they would be just, it's a big footprint and there's a lot of product, and I just can't get away. I stand up every year and I talk to the team and I say, there was a time where I traded 8 or 6 heifer calves for an AstroTurf tennis court off a calf buyer so that I could get this tennis court, because I was going to have a tennis court one day, and I rolled that up and put it in the shed and kept it. I don't know how good that was for accounting, but anyway. And then, long story short, is when we had our first field days, we rolled it out and that was our flooring and field days. So we had a AstroTurf floor in our tent that I'd traded 6 or 8 calves for. That was
which had all bumps
flooring.
in it, wasn't even.
No, it was perfectly good.
That was terrible.
And so when and then our changing room, we had a horse float.
We used the horse float in the tent for the changing room.
Yeah. So
and I've still never had a tennis court, by the way.
No. And so the thing is that you can't take the farmer out of who you are, and so we will not waste dollars on those sort of little wee things that we've got to be careful with, I always liken it back to your farming days, and we're still farming now, but we're not dairying. For me, just the refinement of dairying and the technical aspects of it, man, they're so like other businesses. It's if you're outside of the industry and you're looking in, you wouldn't understand, but if you come from inside and out, you get it. And there's just so much involved in dairy that is so similar to other industry outside of commercial business. So dairying set us up super well on how to manage performance day in, day out, as well as finance.
And it certainly taught us resilience.
Yeah. Did it work?
Surviving.
There's a few buzzwords that are very strongly shared and promoted around Stoney Creek. I'll get you guys just to speak to both of them, but what does purpose-built mean to both you, starting with Juanita?
Purpose-built means to me is building a product for a particular application, so that if you're building a jacket to wear on the farm or that will survive through carving, it's got to have certain features that cater for those climatic conditions and those challenges, I suppose. So for me, it's about right product for the right application. Yeah.
Purpose-built for me is several things, but the biggest thing is that you're building a product purely for purpose for that application, so that it maximises the wearer's experience, and that's normally through performance. So the key thing around purpose-built is actually having the knowledge and the understanding of what's required. You see lots of products where there might be a seam right down the knee, and to me that's just anybody that kneels down in a wet terrain. There's lots of things that, so there's simple little things that are really relevant to someone when they've purchased something and they're working in it every day. And so for us, we've got to make sure that we have got that 100% correct. We don't always get it 100% correct, but we've got to be open to changing it or making sure it is. So it's almost a perpetual pursuit to try and outperform what potentially the application might be, so it's a better performance. So purpose-built for me is just knowledge, application, and the ability to put it together to create performance for the end user.
You touched on another one there, maximise your experience. How would you summarise that, Juanita? For you?
Marriage.
Maximise experience. Look, having the best time possible with whatever it is you're doing. And so, having the best experience, and whether it's farming, hunting, outdoors, horse riding, fishing, anything, it's having your best time ever. And if that can be helped by wearing a decent piece of kit that's going to hold up and make your experience better, then that's what maximising experience is about.
Oh, it's pretty simple. I mean, you try and catch a fish with blunt hooks. I mean, like you're going to get a better experience if you've got sharp ones. So for us, we've got to be sharp around our product, and maximising experiences is just simply trying to make the position that you're in being more effective for working in or playing in or whatever it might be. So it's just us doing our diligence and us, Stoney Creek, understanding what can we offer differently than other products that will be more breathable or more flexible or more durable or have stuff in the right place. And that's essentially what it is.
Cool. And lastly, and this is one that resonate really well with you and a lot of the rural community, but it's in the blood. What does that mean?
Well, it's a bit like what Brent said before. You know, it's your heritage. If you know, you know. Like if you've been in the industry, whether it's dairy farming, sheep and beef farming, deer farming, whatever sort of arable cropping, anything, you know, for me, it's in your blood as having that farming or that rural experience in your blood. You know, like in your DNA. You're either born into it or you've grown up in it. And for us, that's certainly the way. I think we're both third generation dairy farming families. Like, so.
Yeah, I couldn't think any differently. Like if you could pay me all the money in the world and I couldn't think any differently than outdoor farming and hunting, I just can't think much more of it. And
it's a happy place too, you know, although it's been you know, farming has its trials, you know, there's nothing better than being on the land.
Yeah, I think
that's
interestingly enough today, this morning I sat in the office. It was a crisp day today, southerly blowing, good growth rates today, yet there's still a southerly, and it's just that classic, you know, May time of year. And I said to someone in the office, Radley, I said, what do you miss the most, you know? And he's like, just you know, Brent, he says, if I could just hop on a tractor and just feed a good bale of silage out to a happy heifers, he said, that'd just be like, you know, that's just, and I said, that's the trouble, Rads, it's in the blood, you know, like you just, every time of the month or every sort of significant stage, you just think of it, you just can't get rid of it. I walked in today and I'm like, no dry cow today, boys. We're not doing any dry cow, smiling away. And I apologise for everyone else that's just doing dry cow at the moment, but when you've done enough dry cow, it's not something that you're super excited about, other than the fact you don't have to get up tomorrow morning, you know? And so, there's just things that are it's just drilled into you, whether it be through being forced to for many years or just the sheer love of it. It's just in the blood. It's just who you are, you know? So, I don't know. Just it's in the blood to me is just, you just cannot, nobody could ever take that away from you.
You can't shake it.
Yeah.
Part of who you are.
Yeah.
Cool. Last question from me, Brent, and you know, Field Days is coming up. We love getting involved with the hyper consumers that love our brand, and it's always cool. But there's always people that surprise me as a marketer, that they do come in and they don't know us and they haven't used our products yet. What would you say to them? What makes us different and better?
Stoney Creek brand is built purely on one value alone. That value is trust. So, I mean, if you don't get what trust is, you'll never get it. But trust, and it's trusting in our process and our people. Even if we get it, if it's wrong and how we deal with it, it's trusting that that's going to be dealt with correctly. And so, for us, it's knowing or for you to have the confidence that all the touch points of Stoney Creek definitely are there for the right reasons, and they are definitely wanting the best for the consumer and for you as a new person. Looking at the Stoney Creek brand is understanding that products are purpose built. We're using technical products to give you more performance that ultimately maximises your experience, and have the trust that the Stoney Creek brand is going to look after you. Also trust in the fact that the leadership in Stoney Creek are committed to recycling and reciprocating that back into the rural communities too, because that's something we're not taking, we're also taking and giving, which is super important.